move the camera down to where you're sitting.
But if I sit, that makes it a little more difficult.
You can sit.
Well, actually,
I'll
we can
I'll
move the
it down.
camera angle down.
I'd rather
You'd rather stand?
stand and read, which is what I usually
Yep,
Okay, that's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep, and
just
then
gotta
if
get the
any
mic
point you'd
close on
like to
your,
sit down, we can easily adjust that.
Yeah, I'll be in the back of the class, so if you sit down, I can readjust. It's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Just gotta get this hooked up as close as we can to.
Yep, and I'll just introduce her real quick.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Yep. Just clip it on once.
okay. Yes, sir. Okay, we're all set for our next speaker is Deborah Post with Runnymede Farm in Chester, New Jersey, and it's believed to be the oldest pick-your-own apple production farm in the state. And they're, according to their website, Johnny Appleseed may have even visited. Deborah's had an awesome career in the financial services industry. She has her MBA from Harvard University, and she was one of the first women partners with Lehman's Brothers. So we're very fortunate to have her with us this evening. And she's going to be telling us about her farm and especially getting into things like labor. So welcome, Deborah. I'll just clip it. Okay. Is that good?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
So, am I in, so where am I speaking into this?
It's already.
Don't worry
Yeah,
about
don't
it?
worry about that. As long as you're connected to it, you're
Yeah.
gonna be heard.
You'll be good,
Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Deborah Post, and I am the sole owner and operator of Runnymede Farm, which is a pick-your-own apple orchard in Chester. I came to own and operate Runnymede Farm when my mother died in July of 2000. The farm was her baby and a rudderless ship with,
You have to move the mic a little bit because the other classes can't hear.
okay.
So let me just adjust this for you. Yeah, it might be better if you literally just hold it like a regular microphone.
Sure, show me how, and I'm
Okay.
glad to do that.
Okay, I'm disconnected from here.
Okay.
Okay. And just hold it like you're a
Like
game
here?
show host. Just this little guy right here. It's a tiny little microphone. I
Oh,
know.
got
Yeah,
it.
and just hold it right up
Got
to
it.
your lips because they can. Hear
Sorry for being ditzy here.
You. Even closer. Like, don't be afraid. It could be like. right
Okay.
there.
The farm had been my mother's baby, and it was a rudderless ship with unbelievable deferred maintenance every place one looked. In 2000, Runnymede was basically a turnaround story and a turnaround challenge. That summer, filled with nostalgia for the farm-friendly rural town where I had grown up, I made a decision to leave New York City and a professional career in finance to move back to Chester to keep my mom's lovely old farm operating and to care for her father who had been diagnosed Alzheimer's. Trust me, this was a big decision. Not sure I'd do it again.
One of the other classrooms, their speaker is not as good, so hold it even closer. to the mic.
At the time, and still today, I believe these were good community values and was not prepared for the hostility I encountered when I returned. These involved bully male mayors who did not think a girl could run a farm. The vultures began to circle, an unpleasant experience as one realized most saw my challenges and choices as possibly an opportunity for a cheap deal. Even the mayor made me an offer. Moral. Don't ever believe that the politics of promoting local agriculture are sincere. Agritourism requires the support and cooperation of the community's ruling bodies. There are the inevitable parking and tracking traffic issues. So make friends with your local police chief fast. Back to my introduction, which in all fairness must feature my mother, a female farmer who pioneered pick your own long before the word agritourism was coined. In my opinion, PYO and direct marketing agricultural businesses represent the only viable agricultural business model in most areas of New Jersey today. I use the word viable as a contrast to sustainable. To me, viable means at the end of the year you can pay the bills. Sustainable often suggests that our Mother Earth is going to have trouble continuing to produce the plant products she has for years and years. Rye is not a long-owned family farm. I am only a second-generation owner. In the late 1960s, my mother was your classic 1950s housewife and mom who was having too much sherry by 4 p.m. My father learned that Lowry Mead was retiring, and he bought Mr. Mead's 300-year-old lovely old farm to give my mother something to do. That's only half a joke, because it worked. She was greeting her customers at the gate in the months before she died. Mead's purchase was funded by seller financing provided by Mr. Mead to my father. An important tip to remember in your financial planning. When you find that perfect farm that you want to buy, always investigate whether the current owner might be willing to take back part of the mortgage. The easiest and cheapest financing available, the practical financing, is seller financing. Over my life, I have on several occasions provided seller financing to others. It always enhances the total price and works out really well. It was my mother's hard work that eventually paid off Mr. Mead in full, and I remember her having a sense of satisfaction that indeed she had bought and paid the mortgage. So Rye Mead was indeed her farm. Satisfaction and gratification is always an important perk. When we bought Rye Mead, it was a fine fruit farm with a clientele of the Western Morris wealthy who drove up the drive in their chauffeur-driven limos for Mr. Mead's white peaches, nectarines, and cherries. My mother continued to operate Mr. Mead's farm market, benefiting from a well-honed franchise of many years. In the 1980s, the migrant crews that used to come through New Jersey and up through New England ceased coming, which meant my mother had no way to to get the apples and fruit harvested and into cold storage for the winter season because the harvest crews disappeared. I can remember my mother sitting in front of our beautiful, huge old fireplace and raising her cocktail and saying, "They can pick their own goddamn apples." I am not sure whether she Got this idea after a summer trip to New Hampshire, where PYO berry farms were beginning to pop up, or whether she noticed that some of the big old farms up the Hudson in New York, like Warwick, were trying PYO. At the time, I was a young woman sitting in a Harvard Business School strategy class, being admonished to think outside the box. Direct marketing was the new thing of the time, and I've always seen myself as my mother's cheerleader. This is a great idea. Go for it. And it worked. The bank account filled up that year, and we had a viable farm with a whole new business model. Pick your own. And over the years, a new clientele of PYOers appeared. When my mother died in the year 2000, that September, I remember standing in my parking lot going, "Thank you, Mom," as cars just poured into the parking lot. The inheritance she had left me was a loyal franchise of customers, appreciative people who were just so delighted that Ryamede Farm, the place that they had enjoyed coming when they were their child's age, was still alive and operating. Sorry for being a little disorganized here. I would like to emphasize an earlier message. Get your affairs in order ahead of time. Trust me. The story of the cruise not coming through is a story that goes back to an old truism that need is the mother of and often the catalyst to invention. I always enjoy telling my mother's story because it was indeed a female farmer who pioneered what I believe is the only truly viable business model left in New Jersey today. Again, my apologies. I was asked to speak on agritourism and staffing. And my response to the staffing question is, it's the hardest thing you will do. Sourcing staff for a successful retail business is extremely difficult. From a staffing standpoint, you are the key staff. You need to be there as your backup and to set priorities and style for all your employees. I encourage everybody to think through whether their own personality is suited to a retail seasonal business. Personally, I despise some of the retail aspects of my business because dealing with the over-entitled, unappreciative, and nasty of our society is part of the drill. We have wars over admission, as many in the public feel entitled to enter a New Jersey farm that, for some, they believe is theirs. The other thing I would like to emphasize is the importance of safety. You must provide safety management plans for traffic and parking, and be the person that makes sure every employee understands the importance of safety. There was a death of a child on a farm in Chester a few years ago. And I still say today, when that farm, which I consider the elephant in town, rolls over, we always get a little hurt. So safety on your farm will affect the operation and the success of every other farm in your area. Staffing is extremely difficult. One of the things I suggest is this year I hired a millennium because they understood social media better than I did. It is very, very hard to find loyal employees. But when you do find them, treat them well because you need them to be there for you. We employ maybe as many as 50 people for the retail business on a busy Saturday and Sunday. That's parking, pushing cash registers, directing customers, meeting and greeting. And I have a regular returning fall weekend group of employees who show up loyally every year. Returning employees who know what they are doing is the key to the staffing challenge. As a Wall Street veteran, I believe in profit sharing, and I pay profit sharing bonuses. These bonuses are arbitrary in size, determined by me to ensure my best people come back. I also offer what I call entrepreneurial opportunities to some of my salaried employees. These include the right to sell our apple drops to deer hunters and keep the proceeds. It also includes the right to plant an acre or two off of our back orchard in tomatoes and flowers and whatever other product that can be viably sold PYO. If an employee can scoop up some more of that cash in the customer's pocket, why not let them? The goal is to get customers to leave as much money behind as possible. Although this thought must be balanced with making sure that the farm's core business is not cannibalized by unrelated businesses that may reduce revenues in total. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I have found, especially in the last couple of years, staffing to be a severe challenge because this is just finding people who want to work every weekend in the fall and who are honest and capable and pleasant and provide good customer service is just very, very hard. Social media, I suppose, if as I said before, I hired a millennium who understood social media because I couldn't figure out how to do it myself. So that is always an option.
Do we have any, we have about 5 minutes for questions. Do we have any questions from the audience, if you'd like to fill them out on your card?
I have one other thought I'd like to share. I attended the Farm Bureau convention, I guess it was a month or so ago, where the theme was female leadership in agriculture. Now, one of my initial thoughts was maybe a place to start would be balancing some of the boards. Which if you do your math, we don't represent 50% of most ag boards. The other thing is a lot of the comments by some of the speakers had this overtone that women were too clueless to actually run a farm and to figure out how to do an agricultural business plan. I found this a little insulting, and just kind of sharing with you the idea that this is not rocket science. If you can balance a checkbook, cash in, cash out, you can figure out how to do a financial plan. It's just not that complicated. And I'm assuming that most people know what farm they want to operate, where it's located, and possibly have farmed that farm already. So most of us can look at who the clientele is, who is going to come, what are their needs, what is their price sensitivity. So laying out your marketing plan is really a matter of empirical observation of who comes. One thing I did when I first came back in 2000 was I took a weekend and gave myself what I call a market research trip. I drove all the way up the Hudson into New York and down into southern New Jersey and wandered through my competition. It was very, very interesting. You get a lot of good ideas. You see how people are doing things right and how they're doing things wrong. And when I came home, I had this feeling that my own farm was particularly special. And it was very, very, very useful too. So don't forget your market research. Always important. You can generate a lot of good ideas.
One question from the audience was, how big is your farm?
The deed covers 75 acres. And that's another point I was going to make early on is always make sure your name is on every title document. I have seen too many women bamboozled into not reading the small print and signing a document that denied them title of their business. So always read the small print and make sure your name is on everything that you are owning and operating. My farm is also, as you guess you can see from the picture, mostly really old seedling apple trees. They were planted, I call the apple trees my peers. They were planted in the 40s and 50s. They're grandparent, I tell the children they're grandparent apple trees. The kind of trees that Johnny Appleseed probably did plant when he wandered through this country, because they're seedling trees on old rootstock. And they give the farm an ambiance of 200 to 300 years ago. I market ambience. Come see what a farm looked like 200-300 years ago and help your child understand exactly where food comes from and how it is grown. I personally get very upset. I had a child on a school group once, and we had a field of decorative Indian corn. And I pointed to the cornfield and I said, "Who knows what that is?" And one little boy looked at me and said, "A corn maze." No. Farms are really not places we go to play on Saturday afternoons. Farms are places where our food is grown, and we should teach our children